All right, this is going to be a beginner's guide going over Sentinel CDM. This is going to briefly go over each section. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm going to save that for later videos, going into the more detailed sections and more advanced things you can do in each section. But for now, you have class color, so it just colors the whole options based on your class. You can override this to whatever color you want. So let's say you want this color, you just change it and then click override class color. It's going to ask you to reload. You can hide the minimap button, cooldown only mode, hide tooltips, slug rendering. You can enable assisted highlight. You do need to also enable this in the Blizzard settings. You can change the opacity for different situations. And then the visibility based on if you're in a vehicle or a taxi, minigame, pet battle, etc. Layout. This is where you control the general layout of the CDM. So you see as this one's icons per row, columns, column spacing, alignment, and grow direction. So as I change this, it changes how many, and you can set that to whatever you want. This changes columns, and this all updates the bar in real time. So if I change this to 10, it updates it. Same with the columns, the grow direction too. So if I have 2 columns, it's going to grow up. If I change that down, it's going to grow down. This is where you control the icons. So the size of them, the spacing, icon zoom. It has all the cooldown text, charge counts, keybind text for the text controls and positioning. You can have show keybinds on for utility and essential, and these are basically the same. Auras, you're going to get a little preview aura to set up, and it also has all the settings you need. Buffs, so it's going to show you a little preview if you don't have any buffs currently in your buff bar. It shows you a little preview for it. And this is where you control how many bars you want in the buff bar section. Then it has the appearance options. So that's basically how you set up the whole layout. CDM bars, it's where you actually control what's on the bars, what you see. So middle mouse click will remove things from the bar. Left clicking up here will add things to the bar. And as you add them, they get removed from the list. So you know you've already added something, so you're not looking through it. You can right click on something to add to the bar, and you can add a conditional. I'll go over that later. You can just drag to put things in and out of the bar. You can right click to remove or mark as conditional. You can add a custom entry by spell or item ID. You can also drag and drop here from your spellbook bags character panel. So if you have like a trinket that you want to track, you just move it over, drop it here. If you want to track potions, health stones, anything like that, you would just open your bag, drop it here. Essential and utility are the same. Auras, just going to track your auras. Like I said, anything with an orange border and desaturated, it means that it's not currently in your track buffs or track bars. So move it to one of those sections, close the cooldown setting for it to actually update. I was having an issue with taint in certain circumstances, and it was causing a cascade. So I had to kind of change the way I was doing that. And then buffs, same thing. You just click to add, middle mouse click to remove quickly, or you can right click and remove. You can set conditionals for this. Ability settings is where you control how the icon actually looks. So it has a bunch of different options, which I'll go through in a later video. But as you can see, this one has the glow setup when it's ready. Custom bars, this controls the custom bars. So you have bar 1, 2, and you have a third bar that's off by default. Down here under bar layout, this is where you control the bars and how they look. Up here is where you actually control what goes into the bars. And at the bottom of this page is where you add items to the entry pool, and it works the same way. You can add by spell or item ID if you know it, or you can just simply drag and drop from your spellbook, bags, or character panel. I guess I could just use the spellbook to add something real quick. So if I want to track Divine Steed, just drag and drop, and then it adds it. Simple as that. So we'll add it to bar 3, and it just adds middle mouse click, remove. Ability bars. This one you can only drag and drop from your spell book, and it'll track abilities as a bar. So this is useful for things with multiple charges, but it can be used for single charge abilities too. So for Divine Steed, I got max 2 charges. I drag and drop. Going to create the bar, and now it's going to track my Divine Steed as a bar. It has all the options to control how it looks, so you can set that up. It has different layouts, so it has vertical side by side, horizontal stack, and vertical stack. You can show an icon, and then you can control the icon to saturate on cooldown. You can anchor the icon wherever you want, and then adjust the offsets. You can adjust the icon size. So, however you want to do it. Clicking X will delete the bar. You'll get a pop up warning. So, you just remove duration bars. This will track an aura's duration. It'll tell you if it's not currently in the Blizzard CDM track section. So it'll say in the not displayed section. So it'll say not displayed in Blizzard CDM. That way you know it's not being displayed in either track buffs or track bars. So if that's the case, like let's say you want to track Art of War, you would need to move that up like that. And now it loses the not displayed. The way this works is it adds it to your buffs bar automatically when you select it as a duration bar. If you have buffs set up and it goes past your limit, adding duration bars allows it to go beyond its limit. So you just click add, and then it adds the duration bar. And as you can see, it's on the screen there. I'm gonna go over that more in another video. This is trying to keep this quick, but it also has the same. You can have horizontal, vertical. There's a bunch of different options. Clicking X will remove it. All of this gets hidden. This is just open while the Blizzard CDM is open. Uh, Sentinel CDM uses zone bars, so you ain't got to worry about that. Resources is where you have your resource and your secondary resource. All that can be controlled however you like. So, for one example, I have my Holy Power Bar. I'm a Paladin, and I have it anchored to the top of my Essential. You can do match container, and then there's a width offset slider in case it's kind of slightly over. You can kind of fine tune it, or you can leave it off and just adjust it manually. Cast bar is just the cast bar. I have it anchored to frame utility. Let me show you the how the anchor system works. Anything with an anchor has a pick frame. You just click it, and it'll give you the option, the container for everything that it can be anchored to. So in this case, I want it anchored to utility. So I just click utility, then I select bottom, and then you can do match width on this too. And it has the offset slider, and you can manually adjust the X, Y, import, export. The general just will export a general layout, but really nothing else. So if you like somebody's layout, you can just export the layout. Class exports everything, and it'll be the name that you have set up in the profile. Then we have profiles, which I'll go over in a different video, but you can enable spec profiles, and then you can enable hero tree profiles. So when you switch specs, it'll automatically switch to that spec profile. And then you can have hero tree profiles set up. So when you switch hero trees, it'll automatically switch to that hero tree's profile. Information just contains information, brief information about what each module does. All right, I forgot to go over conditionals, so I gotta slot this in somewhere. Conditionals are abilities that you may not want to have all the time, so it might be fight dependent or mythic plus, low key versus high key, something like that. So it's basically a talent you're not going to have running at all times. So let's say maybe for Paladin, you would have execution sentence. You right click it and add as a conditional, and it's going to get put on the conditionals rail, and it's denoted by the red border. So if you click uncheck show known only, it'll show you abilities that you don't currently know. And if you check it, it'll stick to only showing you abilities that you know. This is helpful when you want to add a conditional, is to uncheck that, and then it'll show you, and then you can right click on anything and add as conditional. You can do the same thing with auras and buffs. Basically what this does, let's say, let me just remove this for example, and I add it to the bar here, like in between divine toll and final verdict. When I learn execution sentence, it's going to automatically slot it in on the bar where I put it. So now it shows up here like it should. And when I no longer know the talent, it's going to remove it and go back to the way you had it before or the ability you had before. So you can have multiple conditionals on the same bar. So let's say for this example, maybe I increase the bar to 7, and then I put this here, and I were to add this conditional. So it would swap back and forth. Same thing when you add a custom entry. So let's say I add a custom spell to the pool. I don't even know what I would add. I mean, I could just add anything, for example. It's going to show you the custom rail. So it's always going to be CDM, custom, and conditional. To remove something, you just right click it and you can remove it. Same thing with conditionals, just right click it to remove it. And that's conditionals. You can access the unlock screen through either the options menu, or you can right click the mini map button. That's going to show you the unlock screen. There's a couple options. The positioner mode window, this will remember the position you set it in, and it'll persist across reloads and relogs. I just like to set mine up in this corner so it's out of the way. You can control the grid size. You can control the background dimming. So if you don't want no dimming, just turn it off. If you like dimming, I like a little bit of dimming because it makes it easier to see the frames. You can turn snapping on and off. You can turn the labels on and off. So when the labels are on, it'll show you what that container is. When it's off, it just looks clean. So maybe for adjusting, it's easier to have it off. You can lock CDM frames together. So that'll lock all your main CDM frames together. It won't lock buffs together. So that remains separate. And it doesn't lock your overlays. So that remains separate as well. Unchecking overlays will turn off the overlays, so you just see the CDM frames. Unchecking CDM frames will remove all the CDM frames. And let's say I start moving something. Well, it's going to move everything that's anchored to this frame. So the unit frame and secondary is anchored to utility or to essential. So it all moves together. So any things that's anchored together, no matter where you grab it, it's going to move together. But if I hit lock CDM frames together, it all moves as one unit. So it makes it easier once you have things set up to just lock everything together and then just kind of position it exactly where you want it on your screen. And that's, so let's say I want it kind of right there. So now I hit lock frames, it saves the position, and it's good to go. So let's say you kind of got your bar set up how you want, looks good to you. Next thing we're going to go over is ability settings. So under ability settings, this is where you can control all the glows and text and anything else you want to add. Once you edit something, it'll show you edited, and it'll also put a bar at the bottom of the icon, letting you know that something has been edited. So for Wake of Ashes, I have it set to glow when it's ready to be used. You can enable a sound too when it becomes ready. You can set a text warning when it's ready. And this is where you put in what text you want. So Wake of Ashes ready, right? Hit enter. It changes it. You control the font size, color. You can add animations. You can have flash, pulse, bounce. You can add an icon to it. So you can have left, right, or both sides. By default, it's going to pick the abilities icon, but if you want, you can choose your own icon. If you want to do that, you can turn off the icon border. You can enable glows on the icons, set the colors. At the bottom, you can reset the whole thing. It just resets it back to default. Cooldown only mode. So when enabled, essential utility icons always show the actual ability cooldown instead of tracking the temporary aura. So a lot of times when you use an ability, it's going to not show you the ability's cooldown right away. It's going to show you how long that ability is going to last. And then after that, it switches to the cooldown. So enabling cooldown only mode skips the aura part, automatically goes to the cooldown. I prefer that for most of my icons, so I turn this on. But there are some abilities like dot classes, warlocks, balance druids, anyone that has something that they want to track under ability settings, you can click that specific. So let's say I want to track agony or corruption or something like that. So I would go to on cooldown state and click show aura duration. Now that's going to override the cooldown only mode, but only for that ability. That way you can see how long it's going to last, and you'll get your glow when the aura is about to expire on the target. So that's how that works. You can have cooldown text, so when something's on cooldown, it'll give you a text warning. So I find this useful for, like, let's say movement speed abilities or anything like that. Let's say I want to set that up. So I put speed on cooldown, right? Let's see. Kind of make it small. Don't need it huge. Put an icon on the left. Make that a little smaller. Enable a glow. Okay. Now what that's going to do is if I use Steed, it's fine. I still have one charge. But if I use it again, and I use all charges, so it's on cooldown, now I'm going to get the warning that my Steed's on cooldown. And I think it's helpful to know that your movement abilities on cooldown, whether it's blink, disengage, whatever class you play. That way you don't think it's available when it's not and get caught out. So that's cooldown text warning. Again, you can just reset it, or you can reset the whole module. So everything all at once. Proc glow just controls blizzard proc glow. So abilities that have procs, you can adjust. If you don't want the default, you can change it to whatever proc glow you want. You can change the color. You can change the offset. So if you want the glow to be more inside of the border, you can do that. Proc overlay plus sound. So this is where you can add a overlay when you gain a proc. So let's say I want to enable that, and I click choose overlay. It's going to pull up the overlay window. By default, it's going to have the blizzard alerts. And if you have my shared media installed, you'll have LSM, but this has all the blizzard alert ones. If you have the weak aura shared media installed, it'll find that and pick it up. And if you have meek auras installed, it'll find that and pick that up. So those textures will be available. Then all you got to do is find something that an overlay you want to use. So in this case, let's say I want to use this, right? I hit select, it adds to the screen. You can control the scale and the width, the height, and by default, it only shows one side, but I added a mirror overlay. So you can click mirror and it adds another one and it mirrors on the other side. Then you can control the spacing. So if you want something to kind of be around your character on both sides, you can control the color. Blend mode, I always just leave it on blend, solid. Glow looks kind of weird. And then on the unlock screen, all your overlays are going to be controlled separately. So let's say kind of move it around, put it where you want. And this is what I was talking about before. Overlays can be turned off so they're not cluttering your screen while you're trying to adjust CDM frames. So you just move it to where you want. And that way, when I get a proc on whatever I set that up on, I'll get that overlay. You can set up a proc sound to go with it. So when something procs, you can put a sound to it that pulls from LSM2. Reset that. Auras, same thing. You can edit the auras. So let's say you only want to see the icon when it's active. So you would leave active at 1. You would change aura missing to 0. And that way it's only going to show up when it's active. You could turn them both to 0 and use aura active overlay plus sound. So this will be the same thing as before. You can choose an overlay, adjust it. Another thing you can do, add sound. You can do aura missing overlay plus sound. So when an aura is missing, this one you can enable text for too. Then you can control your custom bars, anything that's in your custom entry pool. And then you can control the assisted highlight if you have that on. So you can pick what kind of glow type you want for the assisted highlights. And that's about it for the ability settings. All right, we already kind of went over ability bars, but we'll just go over them again briefly. Like I said before, it's particularly useful for abilities that have charges. It's automatically detect how many charges it has and create the appropriate amount of bars. And then you're going to have all your settings that you can adjust, and you can anchor it. You can match the width, adjust the offset to match, you can control the X, Y. Then that's just going to track that. You can add single abilities too, and it'll just track it as a single bar. If you want to track something as a single bar, you can do that. You can show only in combat. You can set these as conditionals as well, so it'll only show if you know the talent or the ability. That's ability bars. Duration bars. This one's going to be a little longer. So adding a duration bar, going to do a couple things. So first off, the thing that you want to track has to be either in your track buffs or your track bars. It's going to tell you on the select aura when it's not in the track buffs or bars. It'll tell you it's in the not displayed. All you got to do is just move it to either one, doesn't matter. And then the not displayed will disappear from there. Next, anything with an orange border means that it's not in your CDM buffs list. So your CDM buffs list is this. It's not going to matter because it's going to add it automatically for you when you click on it. So let's say I wanted to add Divine Steed, select it, I add it. Now if I go to buffs, it's automatically added. I have it set to where if your buffs are only set to maybe, let's say 3, so you only have 3 buff bars, duration bars is allowed to override that instead of you having to go and manually change it before you can add the next duration bar. And as you can see, the duration bars here. You can have the horizontal or vertical layout. You can have it show only in combat. You can have it completely hide when inactive. You can only have it hide the bar when the aura is not active. You can set it as conditional. And this is on by default, but hide in buffs container. So you don't get it showing in your aura container and in another place. It's kind of redundant. You can adjust your bar height and the width for the icon. You can either have it on or off. You can anchor it. So let's say I want it below, and maybe I want the icon a little bigger. You can adjust the charge count. So let's say I want that a little bigger, want a little offset, maybe like that. Show duration text, that's the bar duration, so the duration of the aura. Then you have show ability cooldown text. So when you enable this, it'll show the cooldown for the ability on the icon. You can adjust this too. You can anchor it, same as the rest. So let's say I want to anchor it to custom bar. So I anchor it to the top, then I can control the offset like that. So now I have, let's say I have this bar set up the way I want. I have it set to hide bar when inactive, so it'll keep showing the icon. So when I close it, the bar goes away, but the icon stays. Now let's say I want to add another. Oh, what else can we track here? Yeah, let's track this. So we'll add Divine Shield. All right, one thing you can do is if you already have a bar set up the way you like, after that, you can just copy from. So let's say I like the way I have this set up, or I want to create a row of these. I can just copy from Divine Steed. It copies it exactly. Then all I have to do is I can anchor it to the Divine Steed. Go, let's see, left bottom line, and then adjust the X offset. So there's a little space in between. It's helpful to remember what you set it at in case you're making a row. You can make them all 11 so they're equal distance. Let's say this one I want the color to be a little different, so I just changed the bar color to something else, like maybe like that. So now when I use Divine Steed, it'll show me the duration, how long it's going to last. So I use that. Now that duration shows up, and I can track multiple at the same time just fine. I find this helpful for lots of things. It works for debuffs, so like dots, so agony, corruption, druid dots. But it's only as long as you're targeting the mob in question. The minute you switch, it's going to change to either that mob's dot timer, but when you switch back, it'll start tracking that one again. That's just the way it works. That's basically how you set up durations. If you don't want to see the icon, like I said, you can just turn the icon off. Or if you want the whole thing to hide when it's inactive, just click hide when inactive, and it'll just hide the whole thing until it's active. I kind of like seeing the bar with the cooldown timer on it, so I kind of leave it on the hide bar when inactive. The other thing you can do is desaturate. So desaturate the icon when it's not ready. So now it's saturated. And yeah, that's ability bars and duration bars. Again, same thing. You can just click X to delete it. You'll get a confirmation when you unlock the frames. If you turn off lock CDM frames together, even though it's not locked together, because this one's anchored to this one, and this is anchored to this, which is anchored to this. It's all going to move together when I grab it, like that. If I lock frames together, then everything moves together. Next up is the resource bar. This is just going to have your primary resource and then your secondary. And then certain classes are going to get a secondary that don't typically have one. Um, Frost mages, I have an icicle stack tracker. For Fury warriors, I have a tracker for improved whirlwind. So it shows you the stacks you have left before you have to reapply whirlwind. And for survival hunters, it has the tip of the spear tracker under the secondary resource. And it works exactly how you would think it would work. So for paladins, just gonna track holy power. Just like that. All right, for profiles, when you first install Sentinel CDM, you're always going to start out with the default profile. What I would recommend is use the default and set up your general setup the way you want it to look for probably all your classes. I know I like mine, but typically look the same. So you're just going to set it up how you want, and that's going to be your new default. And then you can go ahead and then have your auto switch profile and spec change. So it's going to have all the specs for your class, and then it's also going to have the enable hero tree profiles. So it'll switch automatically when you switch specs. And you can also enable it to switch when you switch hero trees. Right now I have the active is Retribution, my spec is Retribution Templar. So I'm set on Retribution Templar, so it's showing me what my active profile is and what my spec is. So my active profile is Retribution. So for you, that would probably just say default. So what I normally like to do is I'll create a new profile and I'll name it like Ret Templar. Then I create. It's going to go back to the default profile. Yours should just default to your default. But in case it doesn't, then you're just going to copy. So I'm going to copy from Retribution. You would copy from default. And once I do that, it's going to come back. Now at the top, it's going to say my active is Ret Templar. Then what I like to do is go to here. And then under Templar, I set this to Ret Templar. And then when I switch to Herald of the Sun, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'll create a Herald of the Sun. Then I'll copy it from my main one, and then I'll make the changes that I want to make to that. You set this as Ret Herald of the Sun, or however you want to name it. And that way, when you switch between Templar and Herald of the Sun, you'll get the bars exactly the way you want. This works for all specs in hero trees, and that's just the way I prefer to do it. So you can reset a profile, you can select an existing profile, create a new, you can copy, rename a profile, and then you can delete profiles. Um, I would suggest keeping your default that you start with. You can delete other ones, but yeah, I would suggest keeping the default. That way it saves as the default layout. And I think that's about it. I mean, cache bar is just a cache bar. Yeah, if you have any issues, feel free to join the Discord, make a bug report. Still a work in progress. I've been recently trying to update the UI to be more user friendly and the UX to kind of take some of the work out of how much work you have to do. Um, like, for example, if you try to remove these from the buff display, it's going to give you a warning saying that this ability is tracked by a duration bar, and removing it is going to cause the duration bar to stop working. So anything that's a duration bar, you'll get the pop-up warning for it. That way you can't accidentally remove it from here, and then your duration bar stops working. So it's just little things I've been kind of trying to do, chasing down random taint errors, stuff like that. But if you find anything, you come across anything, maybe a secondary resource for your class isn't working quite right, anything you got, just post it on Discord, and I'll look into it when I got time.